Hello, and welcome back to the Audible Finish, where we discuss the week gone by in the world of wrestling. I'm your host, Dimitri Carlos, and alongside me, as always, is my esteemed co-host, Thanassia. Welcome back, Thanassia.
Salutations and peace. I'm so excited for this edition of the podcast.
In today's episode, we discuss in full our preview for WrestleMania 40 this weekend, including our thoughts on the overall build and our final prediction on whether Cody Rhodes will finish the story. In that same vein, we will reflect on our WrestleMania 40 match card predictions that we did earlier this year and compare them to what we've actually now got before making our categoric predictions for all of the matches at this year's showcase of the Immortals. If you are enjoying the podcast and have a moment, please like, share, and subscribe. And if there is a certain topic that interests you more than the other, please feel free to jump ahead to it using the timestamps in the description below. On that note, Thanasi, let's dive into what has been the centerpiece for this year's Mania build, and that is the Roman Cody Rock saga. We had the final encounter on Monday Night Raw that just passed, and it led to essentially a whipping from the hands of Roman Reigns and Cody, and not Cody, Roman Reigns and The Rock on Cody Rhodes, and it reminded me of an old JR line, which is whipping them like a government mule. Uh, it was quite nasty, not to the same extent of drawing blood like they did last week. But what did you think of this week's segment with these main eventers, including as well the opening segment with Seth Rollins challenging the guys, and all that, having a Bloodline rules match? Do you think this was an interesting way to end it now that they've all gotten physical in some degree right when it's coming to it?
I think it was clever to showcase what exactly Bloodline rules is supposed to look like before we actually get there, seeing as it's something that we haven't seen before. And as expected, essentially, it's just some variation of a no disqualification or a no holds barred match. So there wasn't much uh, anything too new there. That said, we did have a nice hot throwaway segment, heading into the final week, in the final 5-6 days before WrestleMania. And I mean, when they said at the top of the show that Cody wasn't going to be there, I was like, come on, come on, as if you would keep him off. Yes, I get selling, the whole injury from last week, but you can't do that, especially since the Friday night episode that happens of SmackDown right before WrestleMania the last couple of years has been a little bit filler, where the marquee match is that Andre the Battle Memorial Battle Royal. It must mean that we've got to have something juicy on the Raw Go Home show, and thankfully we did get that.
What did you think overall of the actual lashing, so to speak, of Cody Rhodes with the weight belt? Because I actually thought it's a nice continuation of what happened last week. It's like, what's worse than one whipping at the hands of The Rock? Add Roman Reigns into the mix. And I thought it is cool. And I especially enjoy the fact that it ended with all the big players in the ring, because it's going to be a tag team match at the end of the day at WrestleMania. So actually seeing Seth Rollins get physical ahead and then get attacked as well, it's helping create this narrative going in that, oh shit, we're about to get a really big moment. And to piggyback on the point you're making, the fact that they've done a Bloodline rules match now, one, it shows what it is, but secondly, it also is almost like we've already delivered on it once. So now uh intrigue as to what the outcome of the tag match is going to be, because we've already seen Bloodline rules once. It's not like they've promised something they can't deliver. They have actually delivered, and now it's almost like we don't even know exactly what that match is going to be as an end result. And I think that's good. I think it's good to not actually know how things are going to play out.
Look, I think overall, it always feels massive when you haven't had all the major players in the same place at the same time. And that hadn't been the case until this point. We had maybe 3 out of 4 or 2 out of 4 this whole time. This was the first time that has happened since that press conference, since that fateful decision-making press conference. So now it really looks like everything's going to hit the fan come WrestleMania.
And the important thing is that they actually did get physical. It's like, like the time for talk is over. The time for
Indeed.
action has arrived. All right, well, building on that, another big announcement that was on this week's Raw, I believe, maybe even a day or two before, they actually revealed the Mania card order. So they've actually said outright what matches are going to be on what nights. And just to quickly sort of recount, so on night one, we're going to have Ripley versus Becky Lynch. We're going to have Gunther versus Sami Zayn. We're going to have the six-pack tag team ladder match. We're going to have Jay versus Jimmy. We're going to have Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, Naomi versus Damage Control. LWO, which is Mysterio and Dragon Lee versus Santos Escobar and Ray's son, Dirty Dom. And the Bloodline, Rock and Roman versus Cody and Seth. What do you think of that as a structure? And which matches do you think? Well, we know which one's going to close that night, but which one do you think should open it?
Well, see, that's a very good question because you see, I know you said before the order. We don't know the order. We just know the days that are assigned. The order is up for grabs. The way that I think about it is you always ideally should open WrestleMania with some kind of high tension, right? Some kind of a big match. It hasn't always been the case in the past. You think of traditionally, you think something like a Money in the Bank would have been an excellent match to open with. They didn't always do that, right?
Very
It did
rarely,
happen.
actually.
Yeah, it often went
Yeah,
on at number two.
yeah.
And sometimes that's a strategy thing because you already start high with like Pyro going off very hot at WrestleMania. So the opening match sometimes can be just like a come down. However, because I do think that we should be starting high tension, I would say that open up WrestleMania probably with the six pack tag team ladder match. All those 12 guys, let's get the ladders going first up.
See, that's interesting because I think 90% of me agrees with you. And then there's just 10% of me that says, based on the way they've talked about it in the public forum, maybe let Rhea and Becky open it just because it seems like they're the sort they have the mentality of, well, we think we're a big deal. So if you don't think we're big enough to close the night, at least let us set it up. So for me, I think it's one of those two matches I think should open. But I'm mostly with you. I would love to just open it with the carnage of that ladder match.
I actually accept wholeheartedly the point that you make. However, looking at this list, it looks like this is going to be the only world title match that's going to be on the card.
Mm.
So I would actually, if I were involved, I would actually say that there is still prestige in the semi-main event spot, right? Even like second from the top or third from the top with a P-break match. I think that that's still a very, very prestigious spot for Rhea versus Becky Lynch alongside that opening spot as you have raised.
Yeah, to be honest, like I think that also could be a really good place to put it. Like say third from last, just to have that little match in between to sort of just put people at ease.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that could be good. Or even have it be the semi-main properly, and you just have like a segment or something. Have Rock,
yeah,
so say have
that too.
Austin and Hogan or something. Just go like, oh, how great it is to be out here.
Yeah.
Something like that.
In fact, now that you bring that up, maybe that's what's going to open the show.
Yeah, maybe.
In which case you'd have something small, maybe like the either like the six woman or the tag match, the Latino World Order versus Santos and Dom go in the opening spot. I didn't even think of that. Well done for bringing that up.
Yeah. Well, then, and also on night two, the matches that have been assigned to that second night is Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre, Io Sky versus Bayley, LA Knight versus AJ Styles, the triple threat for the United States Championship. We've got Bobby Lashley's faction versus Karrion Kross's faction, and then we've also got Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes for the undisputed WWE Universal Heavyweight Championship. So that one's only 6 matches. I have a sneaky suspicion something will impromptu get added or something along the lines to this. I don't necessarily think this is the end all be all list that we will get. It could be. But looking at this list, what do you think should open it? Because we know what's
See,
going to main event.
we know it's going to main event, and aside from that main event, we've also got two other world title matches.
Mm.
So this is one where I do think opening the show, I'm actually going to say Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre is the only logical choice based on my logic, because it's going to be either Io versus Bayley or Rollins versus McIntyre. And on that point, I still think that Io versus Bayley as the Royal Rumble winning match, it probably should be closer to the top of the card, probably, like in that semi-main spot. So I think I'm actually going to say that Rollins versus Drew McIntyre goes first. And it will sell Rollins as well as being that workhorse champion because he says, I'm going to close the shift and I'm going to open the shift, right? That's who I am and that's how I wrestle.
Yeah.
What about you?
Again, I think for me, it's very logical. It's between those two matches that you got to start. I would probably lean to Io versus Bailey just because I think that will be a Bailey victory, and I think it would be cool to open it with a really big pop victory, and then spoilers for our predictions later on. But I am kind of backing our boy, the American Nightmare, to also win eventually. So it's almost like you close it with one and then finish, sorry, and open with a big pop. But I mean, the beauty I have of this year's WrestleMania is like I look at all these matches and I'm excited for most of them. So I like it almost doesn't even bother me what order things are put in. I think that it's all going to be great. Which then I see takes me on to the next point that I wanted to ask, which is now that we are essentially finally at the event, what have you thought about this Mania build, which has basically started from the end of the Royal Rumble to now? What have you felt about? Has it gotten you excited for this year's Mania? Because obviously, even before the Rumble, there were heaps of possibilities that we were all anticipating that sort of got lost in the mix because of injuries, because of certain challenges. How have you felt since the Rumble with the build that we now have and we've
So
gotten?
here's how I'm going to put it. I think that a subset of the card has been pushed and has been sold phenomenally well, right? And first up off the bat, I'm going to say that that's obviously Roman versus Cody, the tag team main event that's going into night one, and tying in with that Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre as well, right? By virtue of that, I am really excited for this WrestleMania. Okay. And that's a big deal because usually the main event of WrestleMania in the past has not been enough to sell it, right? It's just been WrestleMania sells itself. So props to it there. I'm just going to bring over the flip side though to play devil's advocate, not to
Please,
talk down.
please.
Because they've used these three matches, kind of they've been siloed as the top billing. It feels like some of the other matches of the card that could have been sold a lot better, could have been promoted better, that there was potential there, probably got lost in the shuffle. And I'm thinking of something like the Uso twins fighting it out, because I think the build at the Royal Rumble was not how it should have been, right? One should have eliminated the other. And I think they could have had one or two more really high tension promos on television. They did have one that I really liked, like their big face off. I thought that was excellent. I think we could have gone a little bit further, maybe with Solo more involved in this storyline, because let's be clear about this. Jimmy is still a supporting player in the main event storylines. Jey Uso, to an extent, is still a supporting player in the main event storylines. So I think they've got lost in the shuffle. I think Gunter versus Sami Zayn, though, in contrast, has been built up phenomenally well. I think with Chad Gable's involvement there, I actually have enjoyed the build here. We're seeing Sami Zayn as that real baby face. I'm thinking as well, like Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch. We could have had more to their build, even though, right, on paper, this is the biggest women's match you can do on Raw. And it's the exact right booking decision. It just feels like even with a 3 hour Raw, they haven't done quite enough to build this. And I think where the problem lies with all of these, right, especially on the Raw side, but um, it's you've got a 3 hour program, and even in the couple weeks before WrestleMania, you're airing just throwaway matches like Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell in a tag match against uh, Maxine Dupree and Ivy Nile. When it's like, well, they're not going to be on the WrestleMania main card, so they can take a break. And I think structurally the booking has suffered there because you could have dedicated all of those minutes that you had for them in ring time to some kind of a segment that had Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch, right? And instead, you're actually delegating that to the Ariel Helwani hour, the MMA hour, and having built there because that was
Which
pretty cool.
which the thing is, that was cool, but you almost feel like if there was a couple weeks more to work off of that, they would have been better. I completely agree with you. I actually, and I might, this might make me seem like the biggest Nia Jax sympathizer in the world, but I almost think the dynamic between the three of them was more compelling than the dynamic of Nia versus with Rhea and Nia versus with Becky Lynch. And that the dynamic of the three of them could have made for potentially a more exciting build to Mania. Obviously, that would not have been the dream match we wanted. So I am glad from that point of view that we got what we've got. But there is a part of me that says actually that feud felt like it was at its most tense, its most bitter, and its most intriguing when all three of them were vying for it together. Whereas having Nia have to wrestle Rhea and then have her just be a bit of a minor interference in Becky leading up to Mania, it's almost like you've taken too many detours to accommodate the three of them. Why not just put them all together? But look, aside from that, I agree with you actually with the Sami Zayn stuff, and I think given they've only had like 2 or 3 weeks to do it, I feel like they've flawlessly actually created the narrative of he's actually a huge underdog going into this, which is when he's at his strongest. And all of a sudden, I'm like, actually, maybe I do want to see him beat Gunter because now they've really sold it as like, wow, he's going to have to do something Herculean to actually overcome this Goliath of a wrestler. So yeah, I think naturally certain matches fall down the shuffle, get less prominence, get less time to actually sell it. But I think this is definitely a stronger build to Mania than most
Mm, I
as
agree.
in recent history. So I'm very excited about it. And Fantasy, maybe it's time we take a bit of a trip down memory lane. And what I mean by that is a couple months back, right after the Rumble, we sort of decided that we should predict what we think the card was going to look like. And, we now know for the most part what it is. So why not compare notes? Look, WrestleMania season is always one of the most exciting times of the year for wrestling fans. And we naturally like to make our own predictions for what matches are going to be on the card, fantasy booking. Earlier this year, my co-host Thanasia and I made our predictions for the card of WrestleMania 40. And with essentially the whole card now announced, we decided to take a look and see how our predictions fared. We are going to discuss them in 4 categories. Firstly, discussing matches we got bang on the money, then the matches that we've sort of got correct, followed by the matches we did not predict correctly at all, and then finish it off with matches that we didn't even think were even a possibility. A hint, hint, it's the main event of night one. Thanasi, are you ready to take that walk down memory lane?
I am ready, willing, and Gable. Let's get into it.
Aha. Well, that's not where we're going to start with. We're going to start with the match that I think we felt the most confident in almost, and that was Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso. I think we felt that was a logical way to conclude this rivalry, sibling rivalry, and we've got it. So that's 1 for 1.
Good for us.
After that, we predicted for the Women's World Championship, Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch. So we got that bang on the money. It didn't happen. Well, actually, no, it did happen basically as we predicted. Because after the Rumble, we said, well, she'll probably win the Elimination Chamber #1 contenders match. And that's exactly what she did. So we got that bang on the money too. And then on top of that, the WWE Women's Championship, we also guessed correctly, but I think that one was as obvious as the Jimmy J match, to be perfectly frank.
That being said, though, sometimes most predictable matches are actually the right way to go about it, right? It's predictable
Oh,
for
of
a
course.
reason, right? The
Yeah, of
story
course.
fits.
Yeah, and look, this was one of those predictions that we said we weren't just saying that because we would like to see, we're saying because that's what felt right.
Indeed.
Likewise, and there was a time in which this looked very shaky indeed, but we did eventually get correct predictions on what the WWE Universal Championship match was going to be, and that was Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. That one was, at a certain time that looked perilously not the case. And I think a lot of fans were going to riot, probably myself included. But we are getting that match, which is good. You're happy that we've managed to make that official?
Well, like you said, we were getting really worried about it for a while because I would have thought that this was also a surefire thing after Cody won the Rumble and pointed at Roman. He didn't say in the press
Yeah,
conference, I'll make my announcement. He made it very clear. Like, I pointed to the guy. I know what I want.
yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up our correct predictions. So we got four matches bang on the money. On to our somewhat correct predictions. For the World Heavyweight Championship match, we predicted Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre versus Sami Zayn. We were so close. We added in Sami. We felt like he deserved a championship match, and given what has happened, we were obviously right in thinking he deserved one. But he didn't get this one. It was just we've gotten just Seth versus Drew. Are you happy with that outcome?
I'm quite happy with it, not knowing what I know about Sammy as well, but also, um, like we would have been keen for Punk to be in this spot, frankly.
Absolutely.
And as we felt around that time when we made the predictions initially,
Yeah.
but the opportunity opened for Drew McIntyre to fill that void. He got there. I'm very satisfied with that, and our prediction was close as well, right? Like we were
This
tossing
one
up.
this one was very close, and I think even at the time we couldn't agree on should we do Samuel Drew, so we just said let's just put them all together.
Yeah,
But
that's
look,
right.
I've really enjoyed Drew's work as well, since sort of turning into this like heelish persona. I think it's been fantastic. Another match that we kind of got correct was the one for the tag team titles. And we predicted Judgment Day versus DIY or Awesome Truth. All three teams are going to be involved in the tag match. So we've kind of gotten it half correct. We didn't predict a ladder match, but I think we did pretty well there. Obviously, there are other teams as well, New Catch Republic, or as we like to call them, British Strong Style.
Thank you very much.
And we've got the combination of Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, probably the most disliked
A
wrestlers.
Town Down Under.
And and obviously with the New Day as well. So I think we did pretty all right with that prediction, I would say.
I'll take that one as a partial credit mark if we can express it that way.
Yeah. All right, another match that we predicted didn't really turn out the case, but they are going to be battling. And that is, we predicted Bobby Lashley and Karrion Kross as a feud match. Instead, we're getting their factions going at it. So we've got the Pride, which is Lashley and the Street Profits versus the Final Testament, which is Cross and Authors of Pain. I actually don't mind this. I think this has been a bit of a lackluster feud, but you give everyone a Mania moment. I don't mind it.
Yeah, I mean that was fine. I actually thought that Scarlett and BFAB might get involved physically as well before they announced that it was a street fight. And I mean it is no DQ, so they probably will get involved physically anyway. But I thought that they would get match billing on this. In any case, again, this one I think is an acceptable partial credit because I think we were tossing up if this was going to be a 6 man or a 1v1.
Yeah. The next thing I want to say, and this one is a bit of it is a bit of a mess, but we basically decided that the luchadors of WWE deserved a match, and that we sort of just said any combination of Rey Mysterio, Santos Escobar, Andrade, and Dominic Mysterio would be in a match. Three of them are in a match together, and obviously we've got the Rey teaming up with Dragon Lee to face Escobar and Dominic. I still think there is the potential Dragon Lee gets injured or something, kayfabe wise, and there may even be a switch. I don't know, but I think all in all, that is a match that we kind of got correct, just on the sheer point, the sheer reason being that we didn't want to commit to any one. So we're just like, let's just put them all in the mix. And I am intrigued by that tag team match. I wouldn't say it's exactly what I was wanting, but I'm also not against it either. Is that how you feel about it?
Look, I mean, I think I would have preferred some kind of singles contest. And Dragon Lee is very well deserving in this spot as well. I do think that Andrade probably would have been a better fit purely because of the teasers that have been happening on Monday Night Raw with him and Dominic Mysterio. But overall, this is a good little outcome, for the WrestleMania card, and another 3 out of 4 right for us as well. So I think that one was pretty close too.
The other one we've got, and this one is probably on the lower spectrum of somewhat correct. We said as a potential dream match, Bianca Belair versus Jade Cargill. Instead, what we're getting is them teaming up with Naomi to face Damage Control. I I'm just gonna say it. I think our prediction of the match would have been way more Mania pop worthy for this year. It's possible they're saving it for another year, and that's fine. But I think honestly the only reason they didn't do that is because they didn't want to commit to either one of them being a heel, and they'd rather just let them all have that collective victory and maybe just extend Bianca's win record at Mania for another year as well. So really make that something that's coveted in the years to come to actually dethrone her. But I am actually excited to see them and Naomi at Mania perform well. Uh, I'm a bit disappointed the Damage Control aren't defending the tag titles, but I guess it is what it is. That actually does disappoint me though. I think Mania's a place that every title should be on the line, really.
I wholeheartedly agree, and even on that point, right? Because we thought that Bianca and Jade Cargill would have a one-on-one. I mean, it also means that by that not being the case, night one, I think, has only three singles matches. Everything else is like a tag match or a six-woman
Yeah.
or a 12 man six-way tag match as well. So it's a little bit WrestleMania 2000 vibes as well in on the night one card.
Yeah. On to the next category we've got, which is just incorrect predictions. And to start off with, for the IC Championship, we predicted Gunther versus Sheamus. Now, this one, I led the Sheamus prediction. I'm going to put my hand up and say, not only did we get that wrong, Sheamus hasn't even shown up. So it's completely wrong. We are obviously getting Gunther versus Sami Zayn for the IC Championship. And you know what? I'm actually, with the way they've done it, I'm actually quite happy with that instead. I think Sheamus would have been cool, but I think with Sami, it's equally quite awesome.
Very much so. I'm actually really keen for this match. And I think I was actually wondering around that time, like maybe Sammy would be a good IC fit potentially. I mean, we were being optimistic and putting him in the world title picture, but giving him an IC title match is still quite prestigious as well. So hopefully he steals the show on night one.
And hopefully, if he does win, he can carry on the good vibes with the IC Championship that Gunther has been able to instill, especially under the Triple H regime. Onto the other secondary singles title for the men's division. For the US Championship, we predicted Logan Paul versus LA Knight. LA Knight. Now we're going to get a bit later into what we thought would be good for all these guys, but we thought that LA Knight, it just felt like a natural fit. He beats Logan for the US Championship. We're not getting that. We're getting Logan versus Randy versus Kevin Owens. I am actually a bit disappointed because now I feel like you have to have Logan retain just because for Randy and Kevin Owens, it really doesn't add anything to them to get that win over Logan Paul. So that it actually means more if he defends successfully. But I'm kind of annoyed because I felt like this would have been a great place for LA Knight to get his first title on the main roster in WWE.
See, the way that I'm looking at it is I think generally the way that they try to structure WrestleMania cards is you don't want to have too many title changes at one point in time.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, you look at the card, right? Everyone's wanting Cody to win, Bailey to win, really Drew McIntyre to win as well. You can make an argument for Sami Zayn too. If we had LA Knight in there, he would be a surefire favorite to take the US title. And that just represents a hell of a lot of title changes as well in the singles divisions. So it is disappointing. I agree. And it's even worse because it probably means that Logan Paul's going to get a victory over two former world champions, which is massive props for him. But in any case, hopefully maybe like Backlash or further down the line, we can see LA Knight get that US title win.
Building off of that, we had predicted the matches of AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens and Randy Orton versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, obviously, these plans got interfered. AJ Styles will be facing LA Knight in a grudge match. And Randy and Kevin Owens, as we mentioned before, are going to be utilized in the US Championship, which leaves Shinsuke with nothing to do. Um, I'm not gonna I am kind of glad that if LA Knight's not got a title match, that at least he's got a high profile singles match, because I think a guy wrestling AJ Styles is a big deal. And I think he will relish that chance to actually be on the Mania card, because this is his first time in his career that he's actually wrestling at the Showcase of the Immortals. So I think having that and the fact that he's going up against a legend of the business, I think, you know, It doesn't make up for it completely, but it is something. Uh, how do you feel about that? And also, how do you feel about Shinsuke not getting a Mania match to work?
Admittedly, I am disappointed that Shinsuke's not getting a Mania match because, as you recall, he had a really, really nice TV feud with Cody, showing that he's still got it. He's not going anywhere. Is in really good shape. As far as LA Knight goes, I am really, really hoping that with his match, it's going to be a little bit like an Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 25, where they were thrown together. Probably not. They're not. Look, physically, LA Knight is no Undertaker. He's no Shawn Michaels. Okay, athletically speaking. However, with that dance partner that he's got with him, they can really go out there. And I'm looking at the Night 2 card. They can have the best wrestling match on this card, probably rivaled only by Rollins versus McIntyre. But Rollins is going to be fatigued, so it's going to be a much more story-led match. Io Sky versus Bailey, both of them have the wrestling ability, but because there's story going into it, it's going to be a much more story-heavy match. Likewise with the main event. So I think LA Knight versus AJ Styles is going to be the wrestling match of the night, and I hope that they do pull it off and get that bravo for themselves.
As a huge fan of AJ Styles and LA Knight, I sincerely hope you're correct. I really do. Uh, we'll see what happens. And then the other match that we incorrectly predicted, which to be honest, I don't think is our fault, given with hindsight, we predicted Asuka and Kairi Sane to defend their women's tag titles against Isla Dawn and Alba Fire. They're not defending the titles at all, so for all we know, we were right and we just didn't get the match. But technically, this is also very much an incorrect prediction on our part. I think they would have been a good tag team to challenge for those titles as well. So maybe down the line we see that, but right now that is not the case. Any other thoughts you wanted to raise on that?
Nothing further on that one. I'm just a bit disappointed that we're not getting them to defend the belts.
It's absolutely the same as me. And then finally, we had a match that I'm not counting this as an incorrect prediction because no one even thought to predict something like this. We're getting The Rock and Roman Reigns versus Cody and Seth. This is something that we've been talking about every week on the channel. But the fact is, a couple months ago, right after the Rumble, no one thought to predict The Rock in such a bout. Like, I don't think anyone really anticipated this sort of thing happening, and it's happening. Like try to think back from a couple months ago. If I had told you this is what was happening, what would your reaction have been?
A complete and utter disbelief.
Yeah.
Right, the idea that The Rock was going to come back, be in the main event. I mean, we even got really, really dangerous at one point because The Rock was actually going to, at one point, challenge in the main event of night 2 for the world title. So that would have been scary, let alone unbelievable. Thankfully, the people's voice was heard and was listened to. So that part was great, but unbelievable. And I don't think that we should be losing any marks at all for not predicting this particular one.
In any case, to wrap it up, we got 4 matches out of the 13 completely correct. And that's really the only mark I'm going to credit us for. I'm not going to talk about these half marks that we were really close to. But I think that's commendable. And I think it does say something that 3 of the matches that we got correct were world title matches. I think it says something about the logical choices being carried through. And that is a good thing, I feel. Because, like we didn't predict that just because like, oh yeah, this would be great. We're predicting it because we felt logically that was the right place to go. And it's nice to see that WWE eventually followed that path for all of them. So, I don't know. I'm very excited for Mania. Are you excited for Mania, Thanasio?
Oh, I'm pumped. Oh, I'm ready for it. This is going to be a very big weekend or a very big Sunday, Monday, I guess, for us here. So I'm very excited for it.
Let us know in the comments below if your predictions were any better than ours. Well, Thanasi, we've now reacted to what our predictions were for the match card to what we've gotten. I think now it is time to finally predict the WrestleMania 40 matches victors. And we're going to start off with night 1, Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch for the Women's World Championship. Now, for me, I might be a bit biased. Maybe I'm a bit patriotic, but I think that the Australian beast, Rhea Ripley, is going to successfully defend the title. What do you think?
Well, this is, liberally speaking, an international match. You've got the Republic of Ireland against well, unfortunately, the non-Republic of Australia, the Commonwealth of Australia.
One day.
But one day, well, here's to hoping. Here's to hoping. And I thoroughly agree with you that you can't go past Mummy on this one, right? She's had it for a year and it just hasn't even felt like enough, right? I wanted to have an excellent match with Becky Lynch, potentially even squash her, really, just to kind of cement where she's standing in her career right now. But 100% backing Rhea Ripley for the victory and for the retention of the Women's World Championship.
On to the next match. We've got the six-pack tag team ladder match for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships. Now, this has an interesting caveat, which is they've strictly announced that the match will only end once both titles have been removed from the position atop the ladder. So, with that in mind, is your prediction a one-team success or a two-team success?
See, I didn't actually even see that until today, a few hours ago, actually. And I don't even think like I actually saw this announced on TV. Was it announced on TV or was it announced via some kind of a separate channel?
It was announced on the Raw commentary on this most recent episode that we had.
Right. So that's something that I would have missed. However, the fact that it's actually being put there, surely it cannot be a red herring, right? It must be there because something big is going to happen. And to be quite frank, I think that we've got to have two winners here. One of them is going to be the big babyface victory of the Awesome Truth, the Miz and R-Truth together. And I think the other one is going to be the Judgment Day, Finn Balor and Damian Priest retaining. And probably the latter will take the first set of titles and then maybe pushed out of the way for R-Truth and the Miz maybe to seize them, to get that babyface pop as like a second moment, if that makes sense.
I'm gonna predict Awesome Truth to win the Raw tag team straps. And this is gonna sound crazy, but I'm gonna predict A-Town Down Under to win the SmackDown straps. I'm not gonna pretend like there's any logic to that prediction. I just feel like in that match, who's the team that actually has the most heat with the fans? I genuinely think it's them. And they are a SmackDown team. So give it to them and then start a SmackDown tag team title division again properly.
And you can name them the World Tag Team Championship.
Oh, that would be great.
How cool would that be? Right, have some uniformity going.
I am holding out hope that eventually down the line that is what they're going to do.
Although it's actually the other way around, isn't it? So Raw has the World Championship and the World Women's Championship. So maybe they can have the World Tag Team Championship, and then SmackDown takes the WWE nomenclature.
Yeah. All right, on to our next match. We've got Gunther versus Sami Zayn for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. And look, they've done a great job building up Sami. I would love to see him win. But that being said, I'm here to win this predictions challenge. So I'm going to back the favorite in Gunther. What do you think, Thanasia?
I mean, I'd love to see Sami Zayn be IC champion again. I'd love even more for him to be world champion. But I think, frankly, that there is more value in continuing this dominant run that Gunther has been on and seeing him get a second successive Intercontinental Championship victory at WrestleMania as part of the same reign. I don't think we're ready for the reign to finish. And for that reason, I'm going to predict retention.
The next match we've got is arguably the most bitter match we've got, and probably the most exciting for the two brothers to actually get into, and that is Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso. And I think really this one feels like there's only one logical choice, and that is for main event Jey Uso to get that big victory at WrestleMania. What do you think?
Well, see, here's the thing, right? A lot of other people on YouTube and in podcasting, they will deliberately predict different results because they just want to make things interesting. And you and I have more or less in the three or so matches that we've predicted so far gone the same way. I'm going to disagree with you on this one, not for that same reason to make things interesting, but because I have very good logic and I actually am predicting this left field prediction with confidence. Jimmy Uso is going to win. Why? At WrestleMania 10, 30 years ago, it was the heel, Owen Hart, that defeated his brother Brett. 15 years later, and 15 years ago, it was Matt Hardy who pinned his brother Jeff. So he was a heel as well. So it just seems to me as if it takes a heel victory in a brother versus brother match to give us the conclusion. And that is why, with confidence, I'm actually going to predict Jimmy Uso gets the win here. Maybe it's a Vince sort of style booking and there's a bit of bias going on, but I'm actually going to go with Jimmy on this one. And I don't even care really. So if you would accept that one, shall we proceed to the next match?
Well, I'm happy to win this predictions challenge. So if you want to hand it to me, go for it. But yeah,
Hey, I said I'm confident on this one.
well, we'll see what happens. On to the next match. We've got Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi versus Damage Control. And I think this one, especially since nothing's on the line, I think this is an easy debut Mania victory for Jade Cargill and a big Mania victory for Naomi and Bianca Belair. What do you think?
I get that point, and I'm actually not quite sure where to go on this one because yeah, I think that Jade Cargill should get the win because it's like a first big like non-Royal Rumble match, but also Dakota Kai, Asuka, and Kairi Sane, they're a faction, they're team members, and they have the titles. So I really am leaning towards Damage Control and putting the W next to their name. So that's what I'm going with actually. Yeah.
Okay. Then on to the next match, we've got Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee at the time of recording versus Santos Escobar and Dominic Mysterio. And for me, I think that the heels probably should go over in this one, especially with this almost being like a form of vengeance for Dominic after losing last year to his father. So the I think that's the way to go.
I see where you're coming from. I'm not disagreeing with you in principle because I think you've got the principles right. But because I've already predicted a couple of heel victories just before, I think I'm just going to have to put in the baby faces here just to balance things out. So that's the reason I'm going for Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee for balance.
And then on to the main event. And this one I've been tossing and turning, with what I think will happen. This is obviously The Rock and Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. And I just think there is so much possibility to either result happening here. But I think at the end of the day that they're going to try and put all the hurdles in front of Cody Rhodes to try and get that championship, which is why I think the Bloodline wins this this tag team match.
I'm agreeing with you and building on what you've said, because I think you've teased it out a little bit. It's sort of like it's a bit of a political thought here, right? If you put Cody in a Bloodline rules match and he wins, he looks massive. If he loses, you've got an excuse for this is why he lost. Okay, so it's a better off principle, right? It's like game theory. But if you put him with Bloodline being barred from ringside and he loses, it's like this was it. Like you lost full clean, right? It makes him look weak. If he wins, it still could have been. It still feels like a smaller victory compared to having actually won with Bloodline rules. So that's why I'm actually going to go with the Rock and Roman Reigns as well.
Beautiful. Well, then that moves us on to night two. And the first match we're going to predict is Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship. Who have you got going over in this one?
Surely it has to be Drew McIntyre. Rollins has had an injury. He rehabbed hard so he could get to WrestleMania, put off surgery. maybe now he's going to actually go up, like, go head into that surgical route. But before he does that, he has to look at the lights. And Drew McIntyre's going to go over after a Claymore with 1, 2, 3.
Well, Thanasi, I predicted this. I don't even remember when, but I know that it is something I've been pondering for a while. And you, at the time when I told you, said I had to stick to my guns or else basically called me a coward. So I'm going to stick with my original prediction, which is that it doesn't matter who wins this match because the person walking out of Mania as the World Heavyweight Champion is going to be Damian Priest cashing in. That's the prediction for how it finishes. In terms of the match, I think it would be cool still for Drew to win and then lose it straight away. He gets that Mania victory just to have it stripped away from him straight away. I think that would be cool. But my prediction at the end of the day is that Damian Priest walks out the World Heavyweight Champion, and neither of these wrestlers in the actual match leave Philadelphia as the champ.
I'm actually thinking things through now. I think that maybe Damian Priest can cash in the next night.
Oh, he certainly can.
I think that that's what's going to happen, to be honest, because I think
Okay.
there's too much going on. Like, there's too much big stuff happening at WrestleMania, lots of title changes already. And you've already got Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes too, which is going to be massive. I think that if Rollins versus McIntyre was occurring on night one, I might be thinking differently because then we can end night one with the big cash in, like the heist of the century too. But I'm going to stick with Drew McIntyre walks out of WrestleMania with the world title.
And I'm just going to say very quickly, the reason I think they're going to do it is because no one's anticipating it. And Money in the Bank cash-ins are always best when it's completely out of your mind, that you're not even really thinking about it at all.
Yep.
So I think it could be good timing, but who knows? We'll see what happens. Moving on, let's now predict the LA Knight versus AJ Styles match. And I think this one, again, it could go either way, but there is one person, in my opinion, that needs this win, and that is the megastar, LA Knight. Yeah. So that's my prediction.
Well, do I agree with you? Yeah, I do. Because he does need it more. I actually wanted him to have a title victory, but we'll take a WrestleMania W as a consolation prize in this case. So LA Knight is my prediction as well. So I think we agree.
The next match I've got written down is the triple threat for the WWE United States Championship, and that is between Logan Paul, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens. And I think for me, we teased this in our main uh, video uh, where we reacted to our predictions for the match card of WrestleMania 40 a couple months back. I think that Logan could do with this win. I think he's paired up against two wrestlers that frankly don't need the US Championship right now. And it would look good on his resume to say he's beaten the likes of Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens all in the same reign.
It's a resume that I hate, and I don't love to hate it. I hate to hate it because I don't think this guy should have gold around his waist. But I suppose that's what they want from us, right? They want us to be pissed that a celebrity is holding prestigious gold that dates back to the NWA WCW days. And Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, both former US champions. They're also both former world champions. So he's going to make a big deal out of getting the victory here. I want it to be as heelish as possible. I want us to protect RKO and Kevin Owens because these guys are like massive stars, right? We're talking about future Hall of Famers. Logan Paul will also be a future Hall of Famer, but in the celebrity wing, so that doesn't really count. For that reason, it's with a heavy heart that I'm predicting Logan Paul too.
The next match we have is Io Sky versus Bayley for the WWE Women's Championship. This is one of those matches that honestly feels like it's been a couple years in the making, ever since they showed up at SummerSlam in 2022 as faction mates. We're finally here. They've been given the platform at the grandest stage of them all for the Women's Championship. I think they're going to tear the house down, and I think we're going to see Bayley crowned as the new WWE Women's Champion.
This is the culmination of a very, very long story. Bayley returned from injury at SummerSlam. Io Sky made her main roster debut in the newly created faction of Damage Control. They've done the hard yards. Bayley won the Royal Rumble, and I'm more confident about her winning than I am about the main event. So I have to give her the victory here, right? Bayley for the win.
Before we get to the main event, we've got one more match to predict, and that is The Pride, Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits, versus The Final Testament, Karrion Kross, Akam, and Razor of the Authors of Pain. This is going to be a Philadelphia street fight. And, I think this is a good match actually to have right before the main event. Just a bit of like wild excitement, get things, really hot and heavy, give these guys a chance to just do some cool spots within a condensed time frame. And I think I'm going to predict the Pride to go over in this one. But I could see this. This is genuinely a 50-50 for me. I don't really feel strongly either way. I think it'll be fine. But I'm going to predict the Pride win here.
Um, just for the fun of it, I'll predict Final Testament. I also don't. I'm not really confident in this one because it's not really clear to me who should win. I mean, frankly, Karrion Kross hasn't shown a lot of promise, and Bobby Lashley, albeit at this stage of his career, would still be more have more benefit. But maybe just because of 50-50 booking, yeah, I'll just predict Final Testament. Not too much thought.
And that takes us into the main event of night two, and that is Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes for the undisputed WWE Universal Heavyweight Championship. This is the big one, Thanase, and this could go down as one of the biggest and best main events in WrestleMania history. It could also go down as the night that WWE completely defecated on the American Nightmare by making him lose 2 years in a row to the same man for the same championship. And I say there is a lot riding on this one, and I think it's not an understatement to say that almost all of the WWE universe is really waiting for this match and to see what the outcome's going to be. What do you think the end result is going to be from this match?
Diarrhea. Oh no, wait,
Okay.
you meant the actual match. Okay, yes. Um, no, all right. Well, look, around this time last year, we were all like 100% confident that Cody Rhodes was going to finish the story. He was going to end what was then still an historic reign. We've still yet to make we've made a lot of history up until this point during Roman Reigns' reign, but he also hasn't broken that big that next milestone of Hulk Hogan's 14 or 1500 days reign. And I'm very frightened, Dimitri. I'm very frightened that the booking committee is going to say that we're so close to breaking that record, we have to just hold out a little bit longer. That being said, I'm conflicted, you see, because there is that argument there. But also, I just think that if Cody Rhodes doesn't win, we've probably missed the boat. I don't want to wait until next year or next, WrestleMania 41. I don't even want to wait until SummerSlam because it has to be a Mania, and next Mania is too far away. However, with The Rock on the board of directors and with Triple H having been control last year, I'm going to commit the cardinal sin of predicting Roman Reigns. And if I'm wrong, it means I'll be very happy at being wrong. So I'm hedging my bets, basically.
And I say I am not in that same school of thought. I believe that when you believe in someone, you believe in an idea so passionately, you go all in on it and you commit to whatever cause, whatever person that you're going behind. So if I had money and was a betting man, I would double down on the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes to finish the story at this year's WrestleMania. I think it is his time. I think it is his moment. And I think that he's going to get to celebrate that final victory of the WWE Championship, the championship that was taken away from his daddy, and he's going to be able to hold it up high in front of the WWE universe. It's going to be a grand moment. And if it doesn't happen, then I'll be man enough to admit I'll be crying my eyes out in my pillow, trying to go to sleep at night.
Well, I thought that we said that we were going to make a statement in front of the Australian Parliament House in protest and say that this is ridiculous. This is shouldn't be happening, going the wrong way. Didn't we say that?
Well, let's not spoil all our plans to the viewers just next time. Yes, but yes, I look. I think Cody Rhodes' time has come, and I thought this was true last year as well, but I feel even stronger about it this year. Let us know in the comments below what your WrestleMania predictions are, and the key question being, does Cody eventually finish the story this weekend? Let us know in the comments below. Well, Thanasi, that brings us to the end of this week's fairly packed edition of the Audible Finish. Next week, we're going to be reviewing the fallout from WrestleMania, including whatever's going to happen on the Raw after Mania. Hopefully, we'll be discussing our absolute elation for Cody Rhodes' WWE title victory. Thanasi, great to have your company as always.
Great to be with you. This is a big moment for us. It's our first WrestleMania having doing while being on the show, while undertaking this project that we started many months ago. I hope you're excited for it as well, because you've been a very good lead host on the show. And let's go ahead and enjoy some bloody wrestling for WrestleMania 40.
Absolutely. Thank you to everyone for tuning in, and until next time, we hope everything you do is just too sweet.